welcome to the Monday edition of the Clemson Dubcast, November 5th, 2018. Clemson coming off a 77-16 squeaker over Louisville, and the massive point totals are sort of making footnotes of incredible trends being put up by this program. Obviously 9-0 for the third time in the last 4 years. Tigers have won 4 consecutive games by at least 30 points for the first time in school history. They have also won 31 of their last 33 games in the ACC. Absolutely incredible. Nobody else is even close right now. You know, Dabo Swinney has said the last few years, hey, the best is yet to come, and I think we're starting to really see the evidence of that. Plenty of coverage and analysis of the football team at TigerIllustrated.com. Also, Paul Strelo's Piping Hot Monday Morning Insider is up right now on the website, so check that out if you're not a subscriber already. Not sure what you're waiting on. Looking forward to digging into more interesting subplots this week leading up to Saturday night's game at Boston College, game day. Should be a lot of fun. Title sponsor of the Clemson Dubcast, Parham Smith and Archenhold Law Firm in Greenville. Very happy to have them aboard. Couldn't do it without them. Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold, both Clemson grads, both huge fans. Forte of their firm is medical negligence. They represent patients and their family members in medical negligence actions. They also handle all sorts of other complex personal injury litigation. I can vouch for them. About 10 years ago, a family member had a pretty serious medical situation with one of the local hospitals. Went to Blake Smith, and he very quickly and authoritatively gave us some great advice, and we were very thankful for that. Parham Smith and Archenhold offers free consultations. Give them a call, 864-990-4581 or parhamlaw.com. Also sponsoring the Dubcast is the Abernathy Boutique Hotel. Actually went over for today's podcast. Wayne Coffman and I met at the Abernathy at Taps Bar and Cafe. Grabbed a couple of pints. I got the Hugie Street IPA, and I believe Wayne got the Trifecta Thomas Creek IPA, and we retired to one of their really nice meeting rooms off the side of the lobby there. Had a great conversation. So, boy, they really take care of you over there. Super nice staff. So not only do they have the tailgates outside before home football games, but also during the week. Go on over there to the bar area. Really cool, laid-back atmosphere. Really welcomed alternative, I guess, to some of the more high-energy places around town, some of the bigger, more boisterous college bars. Find out more about them at theabernathy.com. All right, really fun conversation here. Wayne Coffman, Clemson Hall of Famer, really a Clemson icon, has been here for 40-plus years, made a huge impact in the athletic and academic support realm for athletes, and also just a super nice guy. So here we go. Hope you enjoy. Okay, Wayne, Cheech, Coffman. All right, you got to give the story of how you got the Cheech nickname.
I got Cheech out of high school, and a lot of people think it's some Cheech and Chong, but it's actually not, even though I had long hair when I came to Clemson. But I played tennis in high school, and I had a partner, and I made a good shot one time, and he said, "Way to go, Chichi Rodriguez," not realizing that Chichi Rodriguez was a golfer. So that is a true story, and it started in high school with one of my track teammates. So that's the truth, and how I started off as Chichi.
Okay. We're going to go all over the place here. But so you keep in good touch with Dabo to the point where recently he quoted you in front of the media a few weeks ago. Can you recite the quote that he relayed that came from you?
Well, basically, I told him, he seemed to be, I try to text him every Sunday night, and I started this by telling him that somebody's got to motivate the motivator. And I feel like, that he needs support also. It's not just that the athletes need support. And so it was kind of started off as just a friendly thing of texting him on Sundays and giving him different things. And last year I told him I was the junior college marathon champion. In the last 6 games, I was taking him from mile 20 to mile 26. We went mile 20 to 21 with about 20 guys in the race, 21 to 22 with about 12 guys in the race. And, so it's kind of a game, but that's a true story. We ran bad at Furman one year at the Furman Invitationals, and the young ladies I was coaching got upset. Said, we just don't look very good. We didn't run very well today. And I said, doesn't make any difference. I said, the NCAA qualifying meets in November. I said, look around. I said, the leaves are green. I said, nobody's going to judge you until November. And I said, and nobody can win the crown unless the leaves are brown. And so I was a saying that I had back in the day. I used to tell all the young ladies in the fall, when the leaves turn brown, that's when you need to start worrying about. That's when you need to start thinking about running fast. And so that just happened to be the Sunday night motivation. And I said, you seem to be peaking at the right time. You got the team going, great leadership. And I said, just remember, you can't win the crown until the leaves turn brown.
Okay, so you retired from Clemson. Well, I guess semi-retired would be the right way to put it now, right?
Semi-retired, I'm still working with Tiger Trust. I worked a little bit this week. I didn't work last week. Kind of dictate my own hours. It's basically, the program that, that takes former professional athletes and they come back and finish their degree. Daquan Bowers is currently in school. There's currently 5 baseball players in school. Garrett Boulware is scheduled to graduate in December. Andrew Kashner is graduating in December. DJ Mitchell's back in school. Will Lamb's back in school. And, of course, Bill Spires and Donnell Wofford, Keith Jennings, Terry Allen. Those are the people that have come back through the program. And, of course, the big one was Wayne Tree Rollins that came back. And so those people have come back to finish what they started. And it's always been about education. I know everybody gets wrapped up in the athletic side of things, but the bottom line is you got to have that degree to kind of open doors up elsewhere.
And you spent how long at Vickery Hall?
Well, let's see. I actually retired so I was at Vickery Hall over 20 years. When you start to talk about the 40 years, it just runs together from 78 to 2018. But let's see, I'm 23, 24 years in Vickery Hall.
Uh-huh.
So that was quite a long time. 4 years as assistant coach, 12 years as a head coach. So 16, 18, 20, that's right. About 20 years in Vickery Hall.
What does this program mean? Like, how important is it to you as far as, well, I guess what's the genesis of it? Like, when did it start as far as bringing these guys back to resume pursuit of their degrees? Can you speak on that?
Well, that's something I think that Billy D started a long time ago, but it really wasn't a set program where somebody may call up and say, hey, I'm close to finishing my degree. Can I come back? And we would check and see how much they had to finish, and then we would go ahead and have them come back and finish. So it really wasn't an official program. And then Dan Radakovich wanted to make it an official program, and so he started it. It's probably 3 to 4 years old. I just started working. I've been retired 3 years, and so I just kind of started dabbling with it then. Barbara Kennedy Dixon was kind of in charge of it through Steve DeZan. And so it's probably about 4 years old.
Okay. And so you're sort of the point guy for when they do decide.
No, I'm not the point guy. It goes through Steve DeZan, and it used to go through Barbara. And Barbara passed away, and now Kevin Kennedy. I'm kind of the guy in the background that knows the school curriculums, trying to go back and figure out what you may need to finish. And if you take somebody that's been here, if you took a Wayne Tree Rollins, who was here in the 70s, and I was able to take his old PRTM information, meet with Bob Brooker on campus, and try to see where the old matched with the new. And then we come up with a plan on what you need to finish. So I'm really not the point person. I'm just the person that kind of knows the curriculums, maybe for maybe being a dinosaur and being here so long, I know the curriculum's on campus and trying to make sure everybody gets together and knows what it takes to finish.
And Clemson still honors the scholarships, right?
Clemson still honors the scholarships. But the money that comes back. DJ Mitchell was with the Yankees. Yankees gave money. Same. Will Lamb got money from San Francisco Giants. Terry Allen, Donnell Wofford, Keith Jennings. The NFL gave us $25,000 a year for those guys. Obviously, it costs more to do that, but that's able to supplement. But to answer your question, if somebody comes back and like Garrett Boulware and he didn't have any professional money, Clemson pays the bill.
Okay, and I guess one of the recent examples, C.J. Spiller and James Davis were on the field before the NC State game or during the NC State game, and from what we heard. Spiller told me during a podcast a few weeks ago that he's been on James to come back, and actually James told one of my coworkers, Paul Strelo, that I think I'm going to come back. And Dabo finally got me, so I guess Dabo works on these guys, of course, and I guess you work on them too because you have really strong relationships with most of them.
Well, you try to get them to finish, and being able to be their academic advisor when they were here, I know how much they have to finish. And so when you have somebody that gets close, you really want to kind of put the finishing touches on it. And James is close, and that's something that you want to be able to do. But the other hard part is that you have to explain to people. Another prime example is DJ Trahan. DJ Trahan is very close to graduating. And George Bennett and Tim Beret and Larry Penley would love for DJ Trahan to come back. Tim Beret said he's the only academic All-American that didn't graduate. Everybody wants DJ Trahan to come back. The point is DJ Trahan has to want to come back. And so there are certain classes that you just can't take away from Clemson, and you actually have to buy in and actually come back and get into the program. And I think sometimes people really don't understand that. They think, well, it's just so easy to come on back. Why can't they take these classes away from here? And you really can't. There's some you can take away from here, but you get to a certain point, and don't forget, 36 of your last 42 hours have to be finished at Clemson for you to get a Clemson degree. So you cannot take a bunch of hours away from here and transfer them in. So, or as I used to tease Billy D all the time, people would call back and say, can I finish my degree? And I'd say, this ain't University of Phoenix. We don't print them off and put them in the mail. I said, it doesn't happen that way. I said, you got to come back and finish. So, but guys like Jarvis Jenkins is 13 hours away. Marcus Gilchrist is a semester away. So I know that off the top of my head by working with these guys. Obviously, they're still in the NFL, but I'm sure, and they both have been in touch with us, and I'm sure as soon as they finish their NFL career, we'll get them back in here to finish.
Off the top of your head, do you know that stat that Dabo cites? It's an insane stat of all the guys who have played under him. There's only like some ridiculously small number of
it's a small
them
number. I don't know exactly the number. It could be, I think it's 6 or 7 of them. That stat does not include the guys who left early. Last year, Nuke Hopkins did take a class, but when they leave early, they're a little bit further away from graduating. But his stat is everybody that has gone through the 4-year program with him, and it's an amazing stat. It's crazy. It's a 97% graduation rate. But those are the things you can count. Like I said, Jarvis Jenkins and Marcus Gilchrist, and that's why he wants it. Dabo, there's 5 or 6 guys, and Coach Swinney has kind of zeroed in on those guys. And every time they show up, everybody wants to know, hey, when are you going to get this done? So
we're recording this in one of the meeting rooms at the Abernathy Hotel, and when we got here, you were looking through the TAPS yearbooks that are sitting over by the bar, and sort of going down memory lane there with some of those pictures that were in there of you. Tell us the story of how you ended up at Clemson.
How I ended up at Clemson, it's kind of a strange story because I actually played football all the way up to my senior year, and I ran with the track team just to stay in shape, and I ended up running and not playing football my senior year and running track. And the team I was part of in high school they had won 5 straight Virginia championships. We won the 6th straight Virginia championship my senior year. But the year before that, 2 of the guys on that team went to Allegheny Junior College. The next year, I followed them to Allegheny Junior College. 2 of those guys, plus the best guy a year younger than me, came to Clemson together. And then the following year after I left junior college, I came down here and joined those guys. And so kind of like our high school team went to junior college together, and then our high school team went to Clemson together. And I actually have a newspaper article because in the fall of 1978, we won Clemson's first ever ACC championship in cross country. Well, 4 of the top 5 runners, we were from the same high school. And so the newspaper article back home said Handley High School wins ACC championship. So it's kind of like, it was just a takeoff. I've been on state championship teams. I've been on junior college national championship teams. I've been on ACC championships teams here. That was the first time Clemson had ever qualified for the national championships in cross country. And actually that fall, the championships were in Wisconsin. We ran horrible and we froze to death. So, but, being down here and coming for a visit, I remember Kentucky wanted one guy, Alabama wanted another guy. Sam Colson came in and made a big pitch and said, I'm trying to start a program at Clemson, and I'll take all of you. And so there were about 8 guys from Allegheny Junior College that came down and ran at Clemson at that time. So it was kind of an easy transition when you had those guys. So they were already here a year ahead of me. So when I came in for an official visit, it's the same as anybody else will tell you about Clemson. You're like, where the heck is Clemson? What's going on here? Then you come down here and you're here for football weekend and you're going, oh, wow, okay. So, and then, of course, I knew we had a chance. I'd already won championships with these guys, so I knew there was a chance we could win a championship here, and we did. And so it was an easy transition. And then, of course, 1981, I was a senior. It was my 5th year. My eligibility was done. And Sam Colson, they were just starting a women's program. So I actually went from being on the men's team to being a grad assistant on the women's program that they had just started. And 81, I graduated. 82, I started. 83, I went to grad school. I couldn't get in 82. I had to take GRE more than once. But while I was buying my time, I worked over at Fike, and I worked for Banks McFadden over at Fike. So, and then I became real good friends with Fred Cohn. I mean, I tell people it's a small world when you get around, and you start thinking about some of the things back in the 70s of all the people that were here in the times we had.
And so you get your master's?
Finished my master's in 1985, and Sam Colson decided to leave. And Sam Colson told Bobby Robinson that I was the guy for the job, and they named me the head women's cross-country coach in 1985. And so, and then in 1989, they brought me in and said, we want you to start a full program. So then I made the transition into a full track program.
So can you relate the story of, you were telling me a few days ago, y'all had the best cross-country track that wound its way around the old Seneca Creek, I guess, and football took it because of the practice fields?
Practice field, yeah. Well, football still had practice out there, but we would start right there where the end zone and where the indoor practice field is. We would start right there and go right along the moat, go back behind the maintenance shed, up the hill, across the dike, down the back hill, around the rugby field, which is now the soccer practice fields, up through the woods, down through Larry's practice field, and back to the same spot. That was 2.5 miles. We did that twice for 5 miles. And you could stand right there at the center, at the bottom of the hill, and watch predominantly the whole race. And you could see, runners going across the dike. Fantastic course. Obviously, football got big. Had to have parking. They took the cross-country course away. Then we go out and they build us a new cross-country course out where Walker course is. NC State coach says it's still the best cross-country course he's ever been a part of. They blazed a trail through the woods. They seeded it and had nice grass on it. I had Udi Amrosi was in here for Marika Wrestling's Hall of Fame, and she said that's still the best cross-country course ever. Well, of course, they built Walker, and now there's no cross-country course at Clemson.
Wow. Okay. Your window in 1990, when Danny Ford gets run out of town, basically. What are your recollections of that time?
What's that, 1990 again?
1990, when Danny Ford is out.
Well, when Danny Ford was out, I don't know. 1990 was, we were third in the country that year, which is the highest finish we'd ever finished. It was the highest women's finish of any sport at that time. So, at that time, I probably the biggest thing I remember about that is we had meetings when they hired Coach Hatfield. I remember one time each one of us had to give up 10% of our budget because things were kind of falling on tough times. The attendance had fallen, and we were brought in by Bobby Robinson and said, I need 10% of your budget. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that came. I think back then, being friends with Danny, but football is football. To be honest with you, kind of just focused. I was just kind of zeroed in on my own. Take care of your own.
Sure.
And I was kind of focused in on what we were doing on track.
And then you start working for Vickery.
I don't start working until Vickery till 98.
98.
So
okay.
And that just happened to be something that just happened. It's just my wife got a chance to be director of special services at Pickens County. I knew they had offered her putting a real nice job. They had offered her a whole lot more money than what I was making as a track coach. My kids are very important to me. And I knew that if I knew that she took that job and I was still coaching, that I really felt, in all honesty, that the direction at home was not going to be where it needed to be. And so I told, she took that job, and there happened to be an opening at Vickery. And I went over to Vickery and asked Billy D if I could interview for the job. And the story goes, he says, if you don't want this job, and I said, yeah, I do. And he said, if you want this job, you'll be here tomorrow. And he came in at 7:30. I was waiting for him at 7:15. I did the interview, and he hired me. So, and it was kind of a tough situation at that time because Billy D and I had to ride down to Bobby Robinson's office and tell him and Dwight that I wasn't going to be coaching anymore.
Dwight Rainey. So this is in the summertime. So Dwight's like, what am I going to do for a coach? So for that fall, until they had time to get a coach, I met the young ladies at the president's house like I usually did for a morning run. I'd go on the morning run with them. I worked at Vickery from 9 to 3, and then I'd come back down and do cross-country practice at 3 o'clock. And I did that through the fall until they were able to hire a track coach. They hired Ron Garner as track coach. Okay, so you decided to leave coaching. Why?
Well, I decided to leave coaching because of my family. I decided to leave coaching because, honestly, I felt for the amount of time I was spending, I felt the compensation. I was kind of disappointed in my compensation at the time. Back then, cross-country track and field, indoor track was the only true year-round sport. Everybody had an off-season. There's no such thing as an off-season now, but back then there was. We were 3 of Clemson's 7. You had to have 7 female sports to qualify within the NCAA. You had to have a minimum 7 sports. We were 3 of the 7 sports at that time. And spending a lot of time recruiting, spending a lot of time. And so, at the time, it was just a time I knew I could go somewhere else and work, make the same amount of compensation, and still have my weekends, which I did. And I was able to spend a lot of time with my children.
So Tommy Bowden gets to Clemson, I guess, within the year one of your stint at Vickery Hall. What was it like? This is weird. So
it is weird.
You're not working for a coach.
I'm not working for a coach, but you have to remember now, I did football my last 12 years.
Okay.
When I first went to Vickery, I did men and women's track, and then that was a conflict of interest because I had just left the women's program. So then I got transferred over, and I did, I've had volleyball, I've had tennis, I've had rowing. I'm trying to think of a sport that I didn't have. But prior to football, which I still say was my favorite time as an academic advisor up until football, I had men's basketball and baseball. So I've always said perks come with the job. So I was in the dugout at the College World Series. Unfortunately, I was in there when we played South Carolina. I was at the ACC tournament with my son as part of basketball. I was there the night Florida State come back and beat us. And we came out, and Larry Shyatt was at the bus, and Larry Shyatt said, everybody shower, get a sandwich, get on the bus, and I expect you to be in class tomorrow. This was a Thursday night game. And the guys were they were disappointed. We were all disappointed. But the fact that Larry said, no, you're going to go back and take care of business at school. And if you guys want to come back up on your own, for the tournament, you can. But no, this is, we're going back home. So I had those two sports. And I really, when I had baseball finished with the highest GPA they had ever finished. Working with basketball was really good. Larry Shyatt was good to work for. Those are the type of things that I think I was put in there for a reason. I think sometimes it's you got to grind and you got to work. And some people think, well, you got basketball, you only got 12, 15 players, but the microscope gets a little keener at that point. People are watching the outside. People want to know how everybody's doing. So I had those two sports, and football came call, and then I actually turned Becky down.
Becky Bowman.
Becky Bowman was my boss. Billy D left after my first year, and Becky took over. And Becky came into my office, and she said, I need you to take football. And I said, yeah, I don't really want them. I really liked baseball and basketball. I don't want them. And she said, well, I need you to take them. I said, I just don't want them. I'd left coaching, and I'd left the pressure, and I didn't want to deal with the pressure. And I knew it was going to come with with a lot of other things on it. So I told her no. I don't know how many times. And she came back in, and after she had talked to Terry Don, she came back in and she said, we really need to get this done. And so I said, well, if you want me to do it, there needs to be some changes made, and some of those things were. And the big thing was compensation. I said, I'm not going to make this move without it. And Becky was, over the years, I can't thank Becky Bowman enough. She's a huge mentor. Her conviction is just exactly where you stand with her, and she took care of me at Vickery, but at the same time, she knew I'm not one to not say I don't have some swag, but she'd come in the office. She goes, well, the reason you got to take football is because you're the best one in the building. I said, well, I already know I'm the best in the building. And so it ended up working out. I took football, and from there, run into Andy Johnson. And it's amazing that Andy Johnson and our career are almost identical. We quit coaching at the same time, and he went into football ops, and I went over to Vickery. And then here we are later, the 12 years that I was with football. I traveled with football, and I was just kind of by Andy's side. We put meals in the lockers at the end of the third quarter. He made sure the buses were there. He may tell me to go do something else, but we were for the next 12 years. I traveled with football, and I was on the sidelines with him, and it was just fantastic job. But it was part of the perk that I wanted. I told Becky, I wanted to travel with the team because I knew I could get close to the guys. I knew I could maybe get with them in a different environment besides an academic environment, And when I used to tell them on the road, they go, they used to tease me. They said, "Now we're on the road now. You can't be bringing up any academic stuff." And I never did bring up academic stuff. So it was really a fun time in my career. It was hard to step away.
That 12-year time frame was what years?
Let's see, 2003 to 2015.
Okay. Becky said, and you said you were the best in the building. What made you the best in the building?
Well, I think my head coaching experience gave me an advantage. I think being a former student athlete gave me an advantage. I was one of 13 children. I'm the only one to graduate from high school, much less go to college. I never thought I'd go to college. So I could put myself in the same exact place that those student athletes were. And I knew a lot of the, maybe some of the guys that were coming in on football, not all of them were, but the majority could be single parent, could be at risk, could be just so many different things that a lot of people are not aware of. But I could get down on their level. I didn't talk to them from a coach to an athlete. I talked to them from a person who had experience of being where they were, and I could relate to them. And I got more than just I could bring more than academics to them, and they could walk into my office, and if they weren't having a good semester grade-wise, they didn't have to be afraid to come to my office. They came to my office for many more reasons than academics. They came to my office to talk about anything and everything. I can talk NFL salary cap with you. I can talk baseball with you. I can talk basketball with you. And so I can put them in a comfortable situation. And once you put an athlete in a comfortable situation and you gain their trust, then you can that allows you to go inside and pull the best out of them.
You mentioned you were really reluctant to take the football job because of the pressure. What are you talking about?
Well, I just knew that football's, that's obvious. Football's in the limelight here. I mean, if somebody was to become ineligible from track, it's more than likely not going to make it in the newspapers. If somebody was to become ineligible for football and not playing the bowl game, it goes across the bottom of the screen on ESPN. And now that draws a negative academic thought to your institution. And then people want to know why this guy's not eligible to play in the bowl game. There were just some things that you just felt like, everything was good. My kids were fine. My wife was really enjoying her job. I had control of basketball and baseball and exactly what was going on. And so to, kind of dip into another endeavor, I had football my first 3 years by myself. Joe White had them for like 7 years by himself. So you're talking about 120 guys coming in and out of your office, trying to make sure they get the right classes, make sure they get the right tutoring. And so, you're a one-man, you're a one-man wrecking crew. And then when it comes time to visit with recruits, you're the only one that's visiting the recruits. So you could see 6 to 8 recruits in a day. So your Saturday morning would be get in the office about 7:30, get some coffee. And when you got home, you got home. And so I knew it was going to take me time-wise, and I knew it was going to take me into a different area. It's going to take me to a different level. On the other side of that, I love to compete. And so once I got into it, I wanted to be the best. And I pride myself on the work that I do. And, those 5, 6, 7 years in a row, we were in the top 10 in the country in academic rates. We pushed hard, but that's not a hard thing to do when you have the structure that's set up by Coach Swinney. Coach Swinney expects people to go to class. He expects people to be on time. He expects people to do the things, not just football-wise. That doesn't happen with a lot of football coaches. A lot of football coaches just want to win, and the other side of it gets taken care of, and if it gets taken care of, great. If it doesn't get taken care of, and Coach Swinney believes in making the whole person. And if I had any issues with a student athlete, it was quickly fixed by that staff. And a prime example of that is Kevin Dodd. Kevin Dodd and I went round and round, and I love Kevin Dodd. That's the good thing about it is after they leave here in 4 years, they come back and they realize. Dwayne Allen said, man, I hated you my freshman year. And Dwayne Allen and I talk all the time now. But Kevin Dodd was late for my meeting, and I kept saying, the next time you're just going to have to pay. I said, I'm tired of telling you need to be on time. So I sent a text to Hobby. Most time I didn't get to Coach Swinney because it doesn't need to get to Coach Swinney. Most time I could fix it myself. And I think being a head coach gave me that experience. But I sent the text to Coach Hobby. I said, I just can't get Dodd to do anything on time. He needs a message. And so he goes down there. He tells Hobby, he says, can we not call Cheech? Because I think Cheech made a mistake. He said, no. He said, it's too late for that. He said, you have to understand, Cheech is the judge. I'm just the prosecutor. Mm-hmm. So, and Dan Brooks, I'm just telling you, those guys took care of their business. It was not, so when you take care of your business the first time, It takes care. And then you got leadership. Grady Jarrett, if I had a problem, Grady Jarrett's probably, one of my favorite players that I ever worked with. And Grady, if I ever had a problem, and you can't bother coaches with stuff all the time. They're here to do other things, and they're particularly here to win. But a lot of times I'd reach out to teammates. And I'd tell Grady, I said, look, I'm having a problem. And I need this fixed. I don't need to take this to the coaches. And I'd get Grady to meet with me with the person I was having an individual situation with. And it would be something as small as being on time. It would be something as small as being 10 minutes late to class. But that's what I expected. The expectations were we weren't going to do well if they couldn't do some of the basic fundamentals of life, not just basic fundamentals of football. So, I got Andre Branch on my sheet over here. He was a prime example. He came back one time from the pros, and one of the guys said, man, he said, Cheech just ride me all the time. He said, I just don't like that guy. And Andre Branch said, he's probably the main guy besides a football coach that's in your corner up there. He said, if you're having a problem with Cheech, he said, you're probably going to have a problem with a lot of other people. He said, I'd get on Cheech's right side. So it's all about relationships and working with those players.
Business owners out there, if you own a business that accepts credit cards, you need to listen up. Tandem Payment, based right here in the upstate, run by Clemson folks, is changing the face of payment processing, quickly becoming the most cost-effective solution for all small businesses. Tandem's program saves you up to 90% on processing charges and gives your customers what they love most, choices. This is not some crazy introductory offer. Tandem's technology allows business owners to offset their credit card processing costs by applying a small customer service charge to each sale they make. If you want to know more, visit tandempayment.com today. Former Tiger Hot Rod McDowell works over there at Tandem Payment. They handle all their business and customer service face-to-face. So give them a call, 864-672-1570. If you're tired of spending an arm and a leg on all those credit card processing fees. I mean, obviously, you're on their side. You're a Clemson guy. You want Clemson to win. But on the other hand, you have to be independent in, hey, you either make the grade or you don't. Is that, not necessarily with you per se, in general, in academic advisement and administration in that way, is that a hard line to walk sometimes?
No. If you look in the mirror, everybody knows about the man in the mirror. And my wife always says, once I come down the hallway and see if I'm talking to myself. I said, no, I'm just talking to the man in the mirror. If you look at the man in the mirror and you got integrity, that's not a very hard line to walk. You know what you need to do, and it's easy. It's easy to separate football. I really didn't have anything to do with football, and I used to tell mom and dads on recruiting visits. They'd say, well, coach said. I said the coaches have no power in Vickery Hall. I used to tell the coaches that all the time. I used to tease them all the time. I said, you have no power over here. I said, you need to keep it. And Hobby used to tease me all the time when I went to practice. He got this ain't Vickery Hall, stay off the field, and so, we kind of, we were teasing each other, but we kind of knew football was football and academics was academics. So I don't think that really wasn't something that was difficult.
So never any pressure like, hey, we can't have this first string linebacker ineligible for this bowl game.
No. That comes up in meetings now. You would have your meetings every couple of weeks. But we established what we call a hot list, and we establish a hot list and a hot list. So now you meet every week. But Coach Swinney has the Swinney huddle, and everybody talks about what's going on in football around the table. You might get a text from a coach and say, hey, look, I got to have this kid eligible. And everybody knows Tremaine Billy and Nick Watkins didn't play in the bowl game. And
2006 Music City Bowl.
They didn't play. But they were taking the last 12 hours of their major, and it was probably the toughest 12 hours of their major. And football coaches knew in August that they were in trouble. Football coaches knew in September they were in trouble. We had academic meetings every 2 weeks at 8 a.m. Down at the McFadden building. They knew they were in trouble. And the time came that they weren't eligible. Yeah, you feel like you kind of felt disappointed that you couldn't get the job done. But at the same time, yeah, there was some blame thrown out there. And but it's just, I just had to walk away from it. And, but once it happened, it's, it could have made it easier. It didn't make it any easier the next time. But I think people realize what type of job I was doing. I think people realize what type of integrity I have. And if those two guys had, Nick came back and finished his degree. And I still talk to Nick too. I think, Nick says, he said at that time, I just wasn't doing the right things. And yeah, there was some blame thrown out there. And there was some blame thrown at me. But I didn't, but I was able to just kind of say, well, what else am I going to do? And I lived with it for a while. I lived with it, to a point that I felt uncomfortable with it. And, I thought about, maybe that was the reason I didn't want to get into football to begin with. And that's exactly what goes back to what I was saying. I did not want that to happen. But in the end, I had good leadership on my side. I had people telling me, you're very good at what you do. We're very structured. We have mandatory tutoring. And this is not on you, this is on them. Let's go back and look at the number of tutor misses during the semester. Let's go back and look at the number of class misses during the semester. Let's go back and look at what they didn't do, and I think we all knew the answer. It's just that at that time, I didn't feel it was very fair for somebody to feel that I was the cause of that. I think the cause of that was those kids lacked structure to begin with.
And just to be clear, you're saying from football, there was some people were blaming you for not fudging the numbers or looking the other way or just making some sort of correction just to make sure they were eligible?
Well, there's really nowhere else to go. I mean, like I said, when you try to, eligibility's critical. But at that point, you have to remember, in August, I had already relayed the message in August that, okay, these guys are eligible. They're taking their last 12 hours. You have to take degree applicable hours. You can't take electives. They don't count toward the bowl when you need 6 hours of required hours to go to the bowl game. Or you need a 2.0 GPA your senior year. So you can't go back and fudge that. You used to be able to do that with the old rules. The old NCAA rules would allow you, if you wanted to, you could take any classes you wanted their last year, and it didn't have to be degree applicable as long as they had the GPA. And there'd be people taking classes that didn't count toward their degree just so they could play. Well, the NCAA changed all that in 2003, and all your hours have to be degree applicable. So you can't take excess electives just to maintain eligibility. So there was no, there's no way to hide in today's world. Mm-hmm. And I think what helps today's group is that today's group, they go 6 hours summer one and 6 hours summer two. It gives you so much more flexibility to deal with them in season and gives you a chance to take maybe some of your harder, let's face it, the kids across the United States, they're behind the 8 ball in math and science. It's not just athletes, it's kids across the board. And you talk to any kid today and they'll say, I don't want to take a foreign language. I don't want to take math. I don't want to take biology. Well, by virtue of being able to go to summer school, you're able to pick up a math in summer school. You're able to pick up a biology in summer school. And if you could do that, it kind of makes you, while you're in season, to be able to kind of maybe lean on a schedule that's not so difficult.
I remember, and I know you remember this, every year in August, late August, as a reporter, it was like, okay, I got to find out which of these incoming freshmen are academically ineligible. Not just here, everywhere. I mean, it was a common occurrence in college football. Now you never see it, or you seldom see it. Is that because the kids are enrolling early? A lot of them enrolling in January, and then the kids who do enroll over the summer, instead of showing up on January 31st and starting camp, they're showing up like the first or second summer session. Is that why that's like a thing of the past?
Oh, I think that helps them tremendously. I think being able to come in, not that they can only come in January and they can learn the offense or defense, they can learn, they can learn the football side of it. They come in also when they're not in season, and they're able to build that structure and they're able to build what it takes. I think that's the biggest shock to these kids. It's like, wow, I got to be here at 8 o'clock. I got to be here at 9 o'clock. I got to be here at 10 o'clock. And that's the hardest transition to make because, let's face it, their senior year, they're either getting late arrival or early dismissal. Kids aren't doing anything their senior year. Then they go to college, and they feel like they're getting hit upside the head with a ton of bricks. Oh, no. I got to get humping. So that's a huge advantage because if you think about it, a kid comes in January, passes 12 hours. Kid goes summer 1, gets 6. Kid goes summer 2 and gets 6. He gets 24 hours before he even steps on the field. 24 hours. And another thing, too, is when we went to school, it was 135 hours to graduate. Now it's 120. Mm-hmm. So you get 24 hours, and then you go through the fall program, and you get 12 hours. You get 36 hours. You play one season, and you're well over 25% towards your degree.
In 2007, I think, the Dwight Jones, Dwight Jones, highly regarded receiver, I think was going to come here, ended up at North Carolina because of Clemson's admissions requirements. It created a whole brouhaha that resulted in Dabo, who was the receivers coach at the time, being a part of this committee that was convened to sort of better address situations like that. Did you have a good window into that at the time?
I had no window into that. Basically, because parents would call or somebody would call and say, is my son going to get in? And I said, and the best way for me to explain that was, I start working with your son once he's a member of the Clemson football team. That even happens when people come in for orientation. You'd be surprised at kids that come in orientation in August, and they're coming through your office, and they'll say, well, I'm here because I'm going to be on the football team. And I go, well, until you're on the football team, I said, are you going to walk on? They go, yeah. I said, well, walk-on tryouts aren't until August. I said, until you're on that roster that's given to me, there's no interaction between the two of us.
What did you make of Dabo Swinney when he was the receivers coach?
Well, Dabo and I went back with Dabo, and I had a big time with Curtis Bayham. Curtis Bayham was a fantastic receiver. Curtis Bayham is funny. Curtis Bayham and I are still friends. We still talk. We still text. But Curtis had a little class attendance, in his senior year, and we were getting him to graduate and getting Curtis where he needed to be. And so we had a couple of sessions in Coach Swinney's office. And so, you knew then, Coach Swinney was like, basically, I got a job to do, and that's coach receivers, and I really don't have time to be spending time with you nor Curtis as far as this is concerned. So that was the only time that I had with him as an assistant coach because when we did grade reports, we would go in at 8 o'clock, and Tommy would sit at the head of the table, and the assistant coaches would be around, and I would hand out a grade report. And then the coaches would look over the grade report, and then the coaches had a chance to ask any questions that they needed to ask. And then if they didn't ask any questions, I was free to go. But usually we ended up talking about the guys that were somewhat in trouble, maybe not in trouble. One of the best things that one guy ever did for me was Vic Koenig was a defensive coordinator. And Cresdon Butler came by my office one day. He goes, man, he said, Coach Vic's just going crazy down there over the grade report. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, he put everybody's name on the board that has a D or an F and put the D or F next to their name. And he said, and your name's going to be up there in front of everybody until you get the D and the F off the, you got to get your name off. So these guys actually picked it up. Cresdon Butler would come in my office. He goes, now, I can't get that D off there because Coach Koenig says you got to call him and take the D off. So I didn't start it, but Coach Koenig started. He said, I want my name off there.
Public ridicule.
Yeah, I don't want my name up there. So he said, so he come in with a test and say, here, look, look on Blackboard, check my grade. My grade now, I got a C average right there. You get my name off there. And so it actually was a really good idea. So it's kind of fun at the time.
Do you remember when Dabo got hit for a secondary NCAA violation over the summer, I think of 2003? Kelvin Grant missed a class, I think, and Dabo ran him.
And
I guess they had to report that. And I remember Dabo's quote, "Yeah, I'm guilty. I'm 100% guilty. I was running my kid for missing class." What's your recollection of that?
Well, I think that's my recollection is that, like I said, I was still able to separate. I was still able to separate the academics from the football side of it. I loved it. It's just strange that somebody cannot be in contact with somebody at that time. Kelvin Grant was a kid at the time that he just wouldn't go to class. He just wouldn't. He even had a bad ankle sprain or hurt his knee, and we even sent the golf cart over to pick him up and take him to class. If a student athlete has an injury, any sport, that they're on crutches or they're in a cast, Vickery Hall is the one that actually picks them up in a golf cart, but they can't take them off campus. It's got to be on campus. So if they live off campus, they would have to drive, and then we'd meet them at Tillman and take them to class and then bring them back. But Kelvin actually lived in Thornhill Village, and we'd send the golf cart over there, and he'd open the door and look out and go, "I ain't going to school today." So you'd be like, and so then they come back, they go, "Kelvin said he ain't going to school." So Kelvin's not going to school. You got to get in touch with the coach. Coach's got to get the kid. The coach really doesn't have time for this. And so you're back and forth. And you know what? You hate to do that because, at the time, Clemson had a rule you can only have 5 class misses. And, the first 2 misses were the coaches got to do something about it. But, that last miss, they had to miss. I think we got the rule finally straightened out to where I talked to some people and said, we need to send a message to take them out of practice before you take them out of a competition. Going straight to a competition was not fair. So we got to a point where we'd take them out of practice, and then if they couldn't practice, everybody knew, okay, the next miss, it's going to cost you a game. And, we had a couple of guys. Nathan Bennett didn't play South Carolina game his senior year. He missed a class prior to the South Carolina game. And C.J. Gaddis missed over the limit in the spring, and he missed a game the following fall, the opener in the fall. Those are the only 2 guys that I know that missed because of class attendance. And so that tells you the entire time that we've been doing this. So if anybody thinks that student athletes aren't going to class, they're sadly mistaken because they actually are, we actually have class checks. And so they're mandated to go to class. So it's not well, I don't feel good today. Or if I ever heard that, if a guy called me and said, "Hey, I don't feel good today," I said, my rule, if you're not good enough to go to class, you're not good enough to practice. So I'm going to call coach and tell him you're sick. And 99% of the time, they go, "No, I'll go." And they'd go to class and then they'd go to practice because they knew they weren't going to miss practice. And so really, that's really not an issue. Class attendance not an issue. But once again, it goes back to the structure that we currently have.
One of 13 children?
One of 13. Dad was married 3 times. Mom died when I was 7, cancer. My dad died when I was 18. He was 45, had a heart attack. So kind of, got hooked up with sports. It's a true story. You can either go down this path, you go down this path. So hooked up with sports, played football, basketball. Wasn't very good at either one of them. Got into running. Ended up winning state, broke state record in 2 miles, indoor and outdoor my senior year. I did all kinds of jobs. Got recruited. Didn't even know. I thought when I graduated from high school, I was just going to go back and work. True story. The guys laughed that I hang around with. East Tennessee coach asked me if I'd taken the SAT, and I said, "What's the SAT?" That's how uneducated I was to the process. I had no idea what the SAT was. So my high school coach kind of took over and said, "Hey, you need to take the SAT and you need to graduate and let me deal with this, with these scholarship offers." So I was a high school All-American that really just all I did, I don't know, ran as hard as I could, worked as hard as I could, and had an opportunity. And so it just kind of just being in the right place at the right time, thank the Lord for taking care of me, looking out for me. And once I graduated from Clemson, I just kind of stayed here, because where else was I going to go? I got a job and got married here. Both my kids are Clemson grads. My wife's a Clemson grad. 13. Became a Packer fan because grew up in Northern Virginia. Grew up in a Redskin Cowboy household. Dad was Redskins, Mom's Cowboys. My brother's Cowboys. I tease my brothers all the time. They go, Dallas is, I talked to them about I said, there's only been one Super Bowl played in Dallas Stadium, and Green Bay won that Super Bowl. It wasn't Dallas. They won that Super Bowl. So let them all know that.
So without sports, where would you be?
No question. No doubt. Could have been drugs. Probably, I'd have been Joe Blow. I'd have worked 40-hour week, 50-hour week. I had some good jobs. I'd have gotten a job. I'd have paid the rent. I'd have got a car. I'd have paid for my car. I'd have just worked. That's all I'd have done. I'd have worked. Now I don't know what type of work I'd have done. So, but I'd have been okay. I just had too good of a work ethic, and I'm too blue collar. Those things don't happen anymore. I mean, back in the day, you could make money shoveling walks, and they don't do that anymore. But I remember I'd be the only one that'd get out of bed. There was such a wide range of age in my family that the most that was at home was 9. There were 7 guys and 2 sisters that lived at home. And I lived in that. My room was 2 bunk beds on one side, bunk beds on the other. Four brothers, 4 of us lived in one room. And so if it would snow, I'd get up and I'd get my snow gear on. I'd go house to house and I'd shovel sidewalks, and I'd come back and they'd all still be in bed. And I'd have some money. I had a paper route, and I used to run my paper route. I used to run down the middle of the street and just chuck my papers and see how fast I could get through my route. So I'd have just worked. I'd have worked and paid the bills, and I'd have still been happy.
What part of Northern Virginia was this?
Winchester.
How big was the house?
1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom house. So had 4 brothers in one, 3 brothers in one, 2 sisters in one, and Dad in the other.
And what did your dad do?
He was a mechanic. He was the best mechanic in Winchester. He was really good mechanic. But he just a stress. 3rd marriage, separated from Mom. She took her children. I was with him. I was just getting ready to go to college that June. And he had a heart attack. They called me and said he had a heart attack. So it was, tough. He actually had a heart attack while he was at work, working under a car. So, those were tough. So that's what made it. I mean, I know I teach my kids. I tell my kids, hey, look, that kind of stuff built character. I said, there's nothing I haven't seen. And that's what I'm saying. That's the truth in relaying my job to working with some of these guys. Bashar Breedlin came from Allendale, South Carolina. I mean, you're talking hard as nails. And, but so being able to relate to him and being able to, he's only 12 hours away from graduating. I mean, to get him that far and to get him to this point, Gary Peters calls back. Gary Peters said, you rode me so hard. He said, you just grinded on me all the time. He said, I graduated, and he said, I thank you for it. So, I can relate that to my growing up. You just work hard, keep your nose, mind your own business, and grind, and everything will turn out all right.
80,000 fans show up in that stadium, about 300 yards from where we're sitting, 7 times a year, and everybody's obsessed with what happens on that field. But do people appreciate enough, what it's like for a Bashad Breeland to be plopped onto a college campus, which might as well be Mars compared to where he came from? Do we spend enough time thinking about that, talking about that?
No, I don't think that. I think, in all honesty, I think it's win or lose with them 80,000. But when you think back to the other moments, when they come out there and they have the NFL time trials out there, and Maylock and those guys come out there, and they're out there running around, and Deshaun Williams' mother they're asking, what kind of character does this kid have? And what does this kid do? And what does that kid do? And Deshaun Williams looks at one of those NFL scouts. His mother said, and Grady Jarrett's mom were there. They said, I don't know why you talking to them coaches. They said, you talk to that guy right over there? So that guy right over there knows these guys about as well as anybody.
You?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the guy who knows, he said, what they do outside of football, whether they're structured, whether they're going to hit the books, whether they're going to study. You know, I've always thought that. I always told Grady Jarrett, I said, the day comes you're done NFL career, I said, you're going to be able to put on a coat and tie and walk in any building, and I said, and people are going to line up to hire you. Or he'll probably have his own business. But, so, no, the 80,000, you know, I think that's all they're thinking about is winning that game. I think there's a large crowd out there. I think the biggest time that people think about them graduating is like when December comes, and the fact that, you know, there's 17 or 18 guys on the team right now that currently have their degree, and in December, I think there's going to be 23 or 24 that are going to have their degree. And I think once graduation comes, I think that's where the thought process comes in. And when May comes and August comes, when they graduate and they see them in the robes, I think that's something that that's when the switch comes on. But once again, I told you we could separate academics from football. I think when those 80,000 are separating football from academics at that time.
What's the most remarkable academic story you've been a part of with Clemson athletes?
Well, it's not really a remarkable academic story. Vic Beasley wants to go to dental school. He kept bugging me about going to dental school. And Vic Beasley would go in and switch his classes. And I'd go back and say, Vic, you can't switch your classes because you have to take classes towards your degree to be eligible. You just can't take classes you're interested in or classes you want to take. So he's eligible. He's smart. Vic's off the chain smart. Vic Beasley comes in. He goes, so one summer he comes in my office. He goes, I want to take chemistry. He said, that way I can prepare me for dental school. He'll still, if you ever ask me if you want to go to dental school. I said, Vic, chemistry? So Vic actually takes chemistry that summer. And I go down to check on him. And the teacher says, Vic Beasley's one of the best students I got. He said, he's here early. He's does all his labs. And he ends up making a B in chemistry that summer. And it goes to show you, if you're interested in something and you want to do something, you obviously can do that. So that's just one of interesting. I don't know. You know, like I said, it's kind of hard to pick out one guy, you know, that would do that. I think it's interesting how far we've come that so many student athletes now are graduating early and working on their masters. I think that says a lot for the program, how far the program has come. It's but to go back and pick one guy, one thing is kind of difficult.
What's your reaction when you hear cynics say, "Oh, that's just a bunch of jock majors and they're just in eligibility maintenance and sort of pushing them through"?
Well, I think there's people say that because there is time limitations, and it is difficult. But Tyler Shatley graduated from Clemson with over a 3.0 in electrical engineering, and he also has played many years with the Jacksonville Jags. And Tyler Shatley wanted to be an engineer. His dad came on a recruiting visit and said, somebody going to try to talk him out of being an engineer once he gets here? And he was told that he could be an engineer if he wanted to be an engineer. So you can do that if you want. I think a lot of the student athletes choose to go into these majors not based off because they're easy majors. It goes back to what I told you initially. It's not just student athletes. Students coming out of high school today are ill-prepared to take majors with a lot of math and a lot of science and foreign language. And so when you start sitting down talking to an 18-year-old and they say, I'm really not good at math, I'm really not good at science, I don't know any foreign language, then what do you really expect somebody's going to do? So that makes it difficult. But I've always been under the impression that if you were to get a degree and you were on time and you were highly structured, that once you got into the job interview, it really wouldn't make any difference what your degree was in. If somebody knew they could count on you and somebody knew you were ready to go to work, and these kids already work 60 or 70 hours a week as it is, so you're not going to hurt them when you bring them in there 40-hour a week. They're going to chew a 40-hour week up and spit it out. So they're not afraid of work. And so they usually find a path that's for them. But would they like to all be business majors? Sure they would. Do you want to put them in a major that has business calculus 1 and business calculus 2 and they can't participate in the sport they want to participate in? So, you kind of got to look at both sides of it.
Tell us the story about Brett Favre coming to Clemson during August camp this a couple months ago.
Oh, man. I actually, my wife, when I first met my wife, she said, I'm going to need a house at the beach. And so we're both retired. I'm semi-retired. She's retired. So we did buy a house at the beach. And on away games, we're down there. On home games, we're up here. So we're a week down there and a week here. But I'm actually at the beach house on Tuesday night, and Dabo texts me and says, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm at the beach." Why? He goes, "That's a shame." He said, because very few people know this. He said, only a handful of people know this, and don't tell anybody. But Brett Favre's coming to talk to the team tomorrow. And I said, I'm on my way. I gassed my car up about 10:15 at night, and I drove through the night and got back home about 3. And wasn't anybody on the road but me and 18-wheelers. And I got back in, and I went over there, sat down, and sat outside. And Dad Turnips, he comes out, and he goes, "What are you waiting on?" I said, "Well, I'm waiting on to see Brett." He goes, "Come on, let's go." So he takes me in there, and I actually walk in, and Dabo and Brett and Bus Cook and Woody are sitting there, and just got to walk in, and you're just like, okay, wow. So anyway, I got his autograph. I asked him about the touchdown he threw to Andre Rison. He talked about the 0 set. He said that Bill Parcells at the New England Patriots, the 2 weeks prior to studying film, he said they had never come out in a 0 set. They had played zone. He said they came out in a 0 set, and he says, "I got an audible out of this." And he's really doubting himself. He said, but he looks at Antonio Freeman. Antonio Freeman nods, and so basically he said Antonio Freeman's basically saying, if Rison doesn't run the right route, I'll run it. Throw it to me. But Rison, is wide open, and Green Bay goes up 7-0. So, getting a chance to, see those guys. My son got his picture taken with Aaron Rodgers under the goalpost in Lambeau Field when Rodgers was a rookie. We had pregame passes. They come running by, and I grab his hoodie, and he goes, "There goes Brett." I go, "You'll never get to him." So we go over there, and Rodgers is by the goalpost, and I asked Rodgers if he goes, "I can't believe I get my pictures taken with Aaron Rodgers." He said, "He's not Brett Favre." And to this day, now my son's got that picture, and I sent it back and got it autographed. And he's always like, so that's kind of special. So, I don't know. Brett is, if you think about Green Bay and Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he had Lynn Dickey in there in the middle, but, that's 3 big-timers right there. And I also have Bart Starr's autograph from going over to see him speak in Michelin. So, kind of having the opportunity. And for Dabo to think that much of me, I think my best friend at my wedding called me that the next day, and he looked at it different. And my wife said the same thing. Said, "Do you know what Coach Swinney thinks of you to call you first and ask you, did you want to come back and meet Brett Favre?" So obviously that goes back to maybe I did some things right as an academic advisor.
You also told me that at one point, because you would text Dabo these words of wisdom on Sundays, and you said, "Hey, should I stop? Am I bothering you? Is this too much?" And he said, "Oh, no.
Yeah, he likes them. Tracy really likes them. And I got them both on a text, and I usually do it on Sunday. And I text them, and sometimes it's kind of, the leaves turn brown was one of my sayings. And when I told everybody in high school, I told that's the one he read to the team last week that I didn't know that he had read to the team. I told him that at the state meet. I was a cocky high school kid and didn't know any better. And I told the other 11 guys at the state meet in Virginia that there was a second place trophy for them over there that that first was taken. And then I ran 9:11 and broke the state record in 2 miles and took my first place trophy and went home. But And so it's, there is a second place trophy. My daughter loves that saying. She said, there's a second place trophy. It's just not for the Coffmans. So it's good. And so I try, some of them I'm serious, I'm serious, I just try to, if I can contribute and if I think it can help motivate, because I think motivation is critical. And he's a tremendous motivator. So he's been inspiring to me. And so I think, and you can't get close to head coaches like that. It's very difficult to get close to head coaches like that. And he allows you to get close to him and almost be in a friendly situation. But at the same time, there are expectations, and you need to do your job. You need to do what you're hired to do. So even though, feel good, everything's great, still expected to perform at a high level as an academic advisor.
Have you ever met anybody like him?
Ever what?
Ever met anybody like Dabo?
No. He's unique. I tell people I can see where he would sell cars. Reminds me a little bit. I told my wife he reminds me a little bit of myself. I was a really good recruiter. I could make the parents feel comfortable. I got a degree in business. He got a degree in business. And so there's a lot of things. He had some household situations, home situations. I had some home situations. So, I kind of feel like I'm kind of walking, in a similar path sometimes.
Have you told him your story?
No, I think, I don't know that. I think he's really, really busy. I think there'll come a time when he will sit down with me, and a lot of times now, if I really want to get to him, I go through Tracy. I know he's busy, and I think that's one thing he appreciates. He knows that I know that he has a job to do right now, and dealing with somebody like me is not, it's not going to help him get wins and losses. So really, if I was to spend any time with him or sit down and talk to him, it would be sometime in the off season or something, but it would have to be something that I'm still trying to get him to go to Your Pie. His favorite pizza is a pepperoni pizza, and I've invited him several times down there to come back to Your Pie and sit down and have a pepperoni pizza and, maybe chat for a little bit. But maybe that day will come. We'll see.
I'm sure he'll take you up on it sometime. Cheech, is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to? Man, you came prepared. You got like this piece of notebook paper with things written down. I'm sure.
We've already talked about head coach. I can offer more than a normal person. Can I make the person better? Brooks and Hobby. I used to tell coaches, hey, look, you're getting a 5-star athlete, but you're not giving me a 5-star academic guy. I said, our job's harder than yours. What if I had a 5-star academic guy? What if I had a 1,600 SAT and sent him down the football field? Who's doing the tougher coaching job here, right?
Yeah, you're getting a lot of Hunter Renfro's academically.
And so I had that written down here. So, and then, of course, the last thing I had down here, Sam Colson hired me here, and he started the program, and we talked about my wife and children. And the only other thing I had down that we didn't touch on is, the Barbara Kennedy Dixon thing. It still hurts. It's just, she was in charge of Tiger Trust. We worked together. There was people that do the psychological services use Barbara's office on Monday. So if Barbara came in on Monday, she had to sit with me over in my office. And we both got offices over here. I call it Little Vickery. They call it the Neary Center. And so the last graduation in May, I've worked side by side with her for the better part of 2 weeks to prepare for graduation. And I learned so much about her and learned so much more about her. And to have all this just come, she went through so many battles. And so you just knew she was going to come out of it again. She always talked about, I'm going to come out of it again. I'm going to come out of it again. And this time she didn't come out of it. And I think that just kind of sticks with me. I've got, I put her legacy up in my office. I got a couple of pictures of her and her legacy of the last graduating class. She was in charge with the Tiger Trust. And I just, I see it when I go into the office, and it's just kind of, it just hasn't left yet. It just kind of just stays there. And and maybe that's a great thing. Maybe that's a good thing. because she was surely somebody. And I talked to Tim Beret about that, and he came in 78, and I came in 78, and he said Jeff Davis came in 78, and so, I mean, that was a good time. But no, I think it's always, I think we kind of hit the 40 years. Barb and I talked about 40 years. So I'm 60 years old, so I spent 40 years of my 60 years in Clemson. And I can't, like I said, I don't think you could script it. Some people say I should write a book, but I don't think you could script it any better than it is. Andy Johnson and I became real close, and so it's just been a great ride. I mean, it's fantastic, and I'm on the Clemson Hall of Fame selection committee, and I'm actually in the Clemson Hall of Fame, and so those type of things, to be able to still be part of those things. I was on the Ring of Honor committee, but I got taken off of that. So, message for the Ring of Honor people: they can put Kim Graham in anytime they want to. I'm still waiting for that, so we'll see if that happens anytime soon.
You mentioned Jeff Davis. What do you think about the job that the Paul Journey has done? Because a lot of that's hand in hand with what we've been talking about with these.
Yeah, it's a lot of hand in hand. Matter of fact, I actually did career when I first went to Vickery. I was in charge of correcting resumes. We had a career program. We actually had companies come in Vickery Hall, and we'd set it up over there. And then we actually had a box over here where I would bring in companies for home football games. We had the very end box right here, and I'd bring in companies, and then I would bring seniors up with their resumes at halftime of the game to try to help the student athletes at least get some type of touch with some professional experience. But yeah, to have your own in shop, it's just one more thing that makes the program exceptional. Just like having your own barbershop. Because the first time Saketta and I were in Lambeau Field, we were in the basement of Lambeau Field, and Gilbert Brown was in the barbershop chair. And we met Leroy Butler, Henderson from North Carolina, the fullback, and Gilbert Brown was in the chair. And we actually talked to Leroy Butler, and he talked about the punt Ruski. And William Henderson said he had nothing to say because he was 0-4 when he was a member of the North Carolina team against Clemson. So having your own barbershop, having your own, your own career center, having your own, those are things that not having to go out and do those other type of things outside. You have those things in-house, saves time. When you come straight from practice and you can have a meal there instead of having to go to the dining hall, you save time. And time is money. That's what I've always said, that time is money. And we have that at the Neary Center. All the student athletes can come and they can swipe their card and they can get a meal between coming from practice and going up on campus. And it saves them time and saves them effort. So anytime you can get those type of programs inside, you can get them in-house, it just gives you another competitive advantage.
Wayne Coffman, we will let you finish that trifecta pint that you have, and thank you so much for your time. This has been a pleasure. I know that all the podcast listeners are gonna really enjoy it.
Well, awesome. So now I can get introduced to podcast, and I can get up to date. My son calls me a dinosaur. He says, "Dad, you got to get in the game." So we'll see how it turns out.
We'll get you out of the prehistoric times and into the podcast realm.
Well, thanks for having me. I know that y'all just caught that baseball card that nobody wants to buy on eBay, but I saw a sheet of 20, so I'm thinking about going back and buying my own cards up.
Thank you, Wayne.
All right, take care. Thanks.
All right, thank you to Wayne Cheech Coffman for joining us. Really fun time there. We are eternally grateful to our sponsors for making all this happen. Title sponsor, Parham Smith and Archenhold Law Firm in downtown Greenville. The Abernethy Boutique Hotel right in Clemson. And Tandem Payment in Greenville. We strongly vouch for all three of those businesses. Please consider giving them your support. And thank all of you, most of all, for listening. 40,000 plus downloads over the last couple of months. Really, really appreciate it. Everybody have a great week, and stay tuned for the next podcast set to be published on Friday morning. Cheers.